Breaking news into CNN. The Israeli military has just announced a hostage has been rescued from Gaza. Jeremy Diamond is following the story. Jeremy, what do we know?
Yeah, we've just learned that a hostage who is being held by Hamas since October 7th has been rescued in an Israeli military operation. The Israeli military just releasing the details that Qaid Farhan al-Qadi, a 52-year-old Bedouin man from Israel, was rescued in an operation, a joint operation by the Israeli military and the Israeli intelligence service, the Shin Bet. They say that he was rescued by Shayetet 13, that's the Israeli equivalent of the Navy SEALs, as well as by Yahalom and Shin Bet forces under the command of the 162nd Division. This happened in the southern Gaza Strip, and that is the extent of the details that we have for now. He is only one of a handful of Israeli hostages who have actually been rescued in Israeli military operations in Gaza. I believe that there have been at least 6 others so far who have been rescued by the Israeli military. Most of the hostages, of course, who have actually gotten out of Gaza, got out during that November week-long truce. But no doubt that this is incredible news for his family. This 52-year-old man, Qaid Farhan al-Qadi, he was actually working as a security guard near the Gaza border on the morning of October 7th, and that is when he was taken captive by Hamas and whisked away into the Gaza Strip. He has been there now for the last 10 and a half months as a captive of Hamas. So obviously some very rare and very good news today for him and his family.
10 and a half months in captivity. It's just incredible. And of course, we'll, are awaiting the details of this operation as to how they were able to pinpoint where he was. In terms of, the ongoing, the hostage release and ceasefire talks that remain ongoing, do you see this rescue operation impacting the talks in any way, Jeremy?
It is really difficult to know the extent to which this will actually impact the talks. I mean, anytime something happens on the ground, whether it is a strike in Gaza, a rescue operation, anything else, it can have some kind of an impact, if not on the talks themselves, then certainly on the psychology of the populations that are being represented by the different parties at the negotiating table. And this will be a boost, of course, for Israeli morale to see that another hostage has indeed been rescued from captivity. But I think that all of the families of the hostages are pretty clear-eyed at this point that they are not counting on additional Israeli rescue operations to get all of their loved ones out of Gaza. They know, and certainly a big portion of the Israeli government knows, that it is ultimately a deal with Hamas that will lead to the release of the remaining hostages. And the question is, can that happen quickly enough for more of them to come home alive rather than dead, as we have seen a number of the bodies of Israeli hostages, some of whom died only in recent months, being brought back to Israel in body bags, sadly, rather than coming home alive. We know that those negotiations are still ongoing at a technical level in Cairo right now. The United States has said that there has been significant progress over the weekend towards a deal, but it is still very difficult to know whether or not these talks will actually lead to an agreement that would see dozens more hostages released.
Yeah, the last rescue that we saw happened in June, where 4 captives were released, and that came amid a major Israeli air and ground offensive where dozens of people were killed as a result. Are we getting any more information about this hostage rescue operation, Jeremy?
As of now, no. I mean, we are looking. One of the things that I will be looking for as well is to see, how heavy was this Israeli military operation in terms of collateral damage and casualties on the ground. We have seen in the past that when the Israeli military does carry out these rescue operations, they tend to do quite a bit of damage on the ground, bombing the area in order to try and send their special forces in safely to rescue these hostages. But as we saw in the previous instance, of course, of those 4 hostages who were rescued back in June, dozens of Palestinians on the ground were killed, including a number of civilians who were part of that death toll.
All right, Jeremy Diamond, I know this is a developing story. We have Gideon Levy with us now from Haaretz to talk more about this. Jeremy, thank you so much for getting up quickly for that report. First off, Gideon, please give me your reaction to this latest hostage rescue operation. What do you know?
First of all, it's happy news. I mean, on a humanitarian basis, everyone is something, and in this case, it's a Bedouin of 53, I think. He got a granddaughter by the time that he was in captivity, and you know, each hostage is a whole world, but it shouldn't change our minds. The hostages will not be released by such operations. Here and there, here a body, there a living hostage, but the hostage will be released only in a deal which will end this war. There are no shortcuts.
And I'll ask you the question that I asked Jeremy about, you know, how do you see these rescue operations? The last one in June, we saw quite a high number of casualties on the Palestinian side. How do you see these hostage rescue operations potentially impacting the ongoing talks where we know there are huge sticking points?
First of all, the ongoing talks are leading to nowhere, so it's not much to put in risk. But what is in risk, obviously, are lives of innocent Palestinians in those operations. I don't know about this one. The last operation in which there were only bodies brought to Israel, dozens of Palestinians paid in their lives. And this is obviously unacceptable, especially when it is about bodies, dead bodies, and not living hostages. In this case, I don't know the details yet because they are not very clear. But I hope that not too many Palestinians paid in their lives. They don't deserve it.
If you are just joining us, we're following breaking news. We have just learned that a hostage who was abducted by Hamas on October 7th has been rescued, not released, rescued by the Israeli military. This happened today. His name is Qaid Farhan al-Qadi. He is 52 years old, as we understand it, and he was rescued by the 401st Brigade and the ISA forces. And moments ago, we heard from a spokesman from the Israeli government. Listen.
He's in a stable medical condition and is being transferred for medical checks right now at an Israeli hospital. His overjoyed family has been updated with the details, and the IDF is accompanying them at this crucial moment. Israeli security forces will continue to operate with all means necessary to bring home all of our hostages. This is truly uplifting news for everyone that cares about the lives of our people here in Israel, and I think right-thinking people around the world.
It's incredible to hear. He is in stable condition. This is the 52-year-old man who was rescued. Jim Sciutto is in Tel Aviv with the latest. Hi there, Jim. So what do we know? I know it's early days and we're just getting the information in. A lot of questions about the rescue operation itself. But what do we know about the man who is now a free man?
Yeah, listen, some rare good news in this conflict, given that we're close to 11 months out since the attacks on October 7th, and so many families in Israel suffering, waiting for news of their loved ones. Here's what we know about this rescued hostage, 52 years old, Qaid Farhan al-Qadi. He was a Bedouin, and according to the hostages family forum, he was abducted on October 7th from a security job at Kibbutz Magen, down in the south, of course, close to Gaza. You heard the Israeli government spokesman there saying that his family has now been given the good news that he is in stable medical condition, and they are continuing to do medical checks on him at a hospital. It is, as I say, rare news to speak of a live rescue of a hostage all these months later. The last one was on June 8th when 4 hostages were rescued from central Gaza. This operation taking place in southern Gaza involving both regular military units and Israeli special forces. They have not released further details as to exactly how they managed to gain his safety. But again, you have to go back to June 8th, so a number of months to a successful rescue operation. Of course, just last week, 6 hostages' bodies were recovered from Gaza. Of course, not the good news that these hostage families want to hear. That leaves the total at 108 108 that are still remaining there, and Israeli government officials have acknowledged that many of those 108, though they have not specified a number, are no longer alive. The Hostage Forum has released a statement saying that this is nothing short of miraculous. They go on to say that military operations alone cannot be expected to gain the freedom of all these hostages. Of course, that speaks to the tension ongoing here between hostage families and the government, because hostage families have been quite impatient for a deal, a ceasefire and hostage release deal to gain the release of the other remaining hostages, or at least a large number of the other remaining hostages. But at least today, for one family, there is good news.